Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Justin Yurko. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Quentin. I apologize. You already hear my dog barking in the background.
It's all good, man. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast, Justin, and I know we're going to have a great conversation. The first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Favorite bodybuilders of all time. For me, I would have to firstly start with my favorite, Stan McQuay. I kind of grew up idolizing him just as a young Asian American kid. Not many Asians in the sport at the time. So he was probably my first bodybuilder I saw in the magazine. I said, hey, I could look like that. He kind of looks like me. So he was my first bodybuilder I kind of fell like in love with. I was like, I could look like that one day. Second one, I would have to go with Hide. Again, just another bodybuilder in the scene that looked like me and I kind of inspired to be like. And then the last one, Phil Heath, I would say is like, he's just my third favorite, I would say, just because he to me was the all-time best I've seen in my era. And just kind of growing up and just how he was elite in the sport was mind-blowing.
Very cool. Very cool. So at what age, Justin, did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Yeah, so I would say it didn't start with weights, to be honest with you, Quentin. I started with just grew up as a skinny, typical Asian kid. I was adopted from Korea, actually. And my dad always said, like, if you want to get bigger for sports, like you could start doing some push-ups and sit-ups every night. So I started doing that probably sixth grade is when I started a routine. I do 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups every night. And just kind of progressed into weightlifting by eighth grade is when I kind of picked up my first set of weights. And the main reason I would say I got into it is just, I think a lot of bodybuilders too, whether we want to admit it or not, was just being insecure and just kind of looking different. Like I grew up in a white neighborhood, predominantly, one of the very few Asian kids in the area. So I felt different. I knew I looked different and just kind of felt uncomfortable in my own skin when I was first kind of growing up, I'd say. And it was like my release and like my area where I could be different, but be different in a good way.
Excellent. So I'm very interested in getting into your upbringing, your childhood. That's kind of how I use that latter question to kind of transition into the backstory of my guests. Hence, behind the muscle, because we know we see the Instagram, we see the muscle, we see, some of the accolades, but my goal is always to kind of pull back the curtain, so to speak, on you athletes and the coaches I bring on to kind of get that backstory. So why don't you just talk a little bit more, Justin, please, about your upbringing, talk about, the family dynamics, maybe some of the activities that you were involved with during childhood. And I know that you've made some posts I saw on your Instagram about, maybe some of those struggles of, looking different than the kids that were around you when you're growing up. So I would really love to hear more of your heart and your perspective on that as you kind of share your childhood.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say like me, I was adopted when I was 8 months old from South Korea. Brought into just a regular, normal, traditional American white family. They never made me feel any different. Like my upbringing was brought up on American pie and hot dogs, as my dad always said. He got me into baseball at a young age and fell in love with baseball. Basketball were like my two main sports I played, just growing up as a kid, and a way to kind of stay active, get involved, and kind of get me socialized. I think that helped me a lot, is just like youth sports. And from there, I'd say like I stuck with basketball for a while. I played basketball up until high school, where I was 5'6" and I knew I wasn't growing anymore. So I said, hey, like, I'm not going to be playing basketball in college. No Earl Boykins by any means. So I kind of went with what I could control. And that was like my performance and my results in the gym. And that was something that kind of stuck with me. I was like, I can control how I look at 5'6" and turn my body into whatever I want to envision it to be. And at the end of the day, it's me versus me. No one else controls that. There's no coach that's put me in the game it's me in the game at all times. So that's kind of how I got into bodybuilding from there. But as far as like being adopted, I'd say, and stuff, like my parents did an awesome job with me, like not making me feel different at home, and like just kind of treating me as their own, as any family would, I'm sure, that adopts a child. But like to me, it was an awesome upbringing, perfect family that I was like brought into. So I couldn't ask for a better family or a better situation. And very thankful for all of that, and like my opportunity here in America, and just being brought over here at such a young age with so much opportunity.
Now, were you an only child within that family, or do you have siblings?
So I was the only child. My mom actually couldn't have children. They tried a couple times, and I was kind of like the blessing in disguise when they brought me over here from Korea. And I was the only child. I always wanted a brother or sister. I never understood why I couldn't have one at the time until I was older, but like that was my dream. I was like, I want a brother, I want a sister. But now it's just me and my parents.
Very cool. Now, I want to ask you something, probably a little bit more personal, but being from Korea, and like you've already mentioned, being in a neighborhood where there wasn't really anybody that kind of looked like you, quote unquote. Did you experience some like, people making fun of you? Did you experience bullying? And if so, like, what did that do to you mentally? Because I mean, when you're growing up, especially once we start getting into middle school, it doesn't matter, if you look like everybody around you or you don't. We all have those insecurities, like you mentioned earlier, Justin. Maybe we have a gap in our teeth, or maybe we have a little bit more extra baby fat than somebody else. So there's a lot going on. And then add into the fact that, you do actually physically look different than everybody. Talk about a little bit of that, please. Because I feel like there's going to be somebody or some buddies listening to this, that this part of your story is really going to hit home for them. So Definitely. If you want to just share a little bit more about some of those specific experiences, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure like we all have our different like insecurities, as you mentioned. So it's not like me saying like, oh, me being Asian, I want you to feel bad for me as my upbringing. Like, no, like we all got made fun of at one point in our life, whether we kind of put it behind us or it's something we talk about openly. It took me a little longer to kind of really talk about it, I'd say, like openly and feel comfortable. But like starting in even elementary school, I'd say like there was no like covering it up or anything. Like I was made fun of for my eyes right away. Like that's the first thing kids notice is like, oh, your eyes are squinty. Why are your eyes shut? Like, no, this is just how I am. Like I'm looking at you. No, like that's just how I look. Like I just look different. So that's like the biggest target I'd say I wore on my back for many years. And that my insecurity like was my eyes. Like everyone pointed out my eyes. Like you get the slanted eye jokes, you get like all those jokes like throughout school. And like as a kid, I think the one thing that just kind of helped me is like just kind of laugh it off and like tried to act like it didn't bother me at the time. But like deep down, it definitely bothered me and made me kind of push me down, like feel little and just like insecure about just like little things. And like, are they looking at my eyes, or are they going to make fun of me when I meet new people? So like elementary school already, it was like something I was made fun of. I'd say sports helped me kind of like fit in. Like I still had a good group of friends, and like sports helped me kind of help me build a foundation, I'd say, of good friends, where it didn't matter how I looked. It was more like I was good at sports and I was athletic. So it was something they looked past. And I'd say that helped me through middle school and high school, even as far as like just my friends group, like not to like sound cool or anything, but like I became like a popular kid and like just kind of accepted, I'd say, for the fact that I was like athletic and I was becoming more outgoing. And it was something they kind of looked past. And I wasn't this Korean, Asian kid, Chinese kid, as everyone would refer, like, oh, you're Chinese, do you speak Chinese? Like, no, I speak nothing. I'm brought up as white as you. Like, no. So I'd say like the eye thing, I was always skinny. So like I was an easy target too. I was always short. I was the shortest kid in every class. So like put 2 and 2 together, the skinniest kid, target already. Like, oh, we could pick on him. He's not going to hurt us. He's not going to fight back. He's Asian. He has squinty eyes. Like even better. Like let's go after him. So, I mean, as you can imagine, I definitely took my fair share of like verbal abuse, and just bullying, like I think we all have, but it's something, again, just kind of made me stronger in the end. It's not something I ever rebelled against or like stood up for myself. I'll say I was like kind of just non-submissive and just kind of brush it off my shoulder, move on. And to me, like there was bigger things in life that I wanted to focus on, and working out and like bodybuilding, like I'd say saved my just confidence. And that was like a way for me to look different. The stereotypes, I think, in America are hard for some of us to outlive, whether you're Asian, whether you're Indian or Muslim. Like there's so many stereotypes in the American culture, I think, that we're kind of brought into in this world. And for me, I was like, I never want to be the average Asian. When I grew up watching TV, there was no one to look up to. It was Bloodsport. Bloodsport and Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. I was Jackie Chan most of the time, or Bloodsport. Once I got into college, I was bigger. So there was always like an Asian joke or comparison to like another Asian person in the culture that they knew of. So it was definitely a battle in my youth, but I think in the end, it definitely kind of just made me who I am today, and just kind of understand some of the pains people are going through. Like, and when you're a kid, like you don't really understand it all. And I'd say like once I hit my 20s, I kind of like reflected on my childhood. I was like, shit, everyone's going through this stuff. Like whether we want to talk about it or not, like there's 200 people that are going through the same shit you went through when you were that age. So if I could help a couple people, especially like Asian kids, like just growing up in the United States, like all the Asian hate stuff and everything in our culture right now, if I could be like an idol to one of them, or like just help them through some of the tough times, and like, no, I've been there and was made fun of and like been through everything they went through, whether they're Asian or not, and help them get through that and be a stronger person at the end of the day. That's my goal. And that's really kind of what got me into bodybuilding.
Beautiful, man. And that's one reason why I was excited to have this conversation with you, because you just have a different perspective, right? And I know that your story definitely has that opportunity to positively impact people. Now, I want to talk about, before we kind of get past, your childhood and high school, what were your studies like? I mean, were you pretty focused in school? Did your parents really push you in terms of academics, or was that kind of did that kind of take a backseat to the sports?
I mean, I'll be honest, I was never the average Asian kid when it comes to like education either. I was never like the straight A student who solved like arithmetic in second grade. So I'll be honest, that's definitely not like built into our genes. I was a smart kid. I definitely did well with my grades and stuff, but at the end of the day, my parents did a great job with like, hey, do well in school, put your best foot forward, have fun, still be a kid, still get involved with sports and get involved as much as you can to be active. So they had a great balance with me. It was never like pressure to get straight A's. It's funny though, I think like just being in class, like just people look at you like, oh, he's going to be really smart. Like I'm going to cheat off him. Like, shoot, if you cheated off me in elementary school, you definitely weren't passing too well, or middle school. But no, it was a great balance growing up. Like my parents never pressured me with grades. It was always like sports, get good grades. We won't bother you. Like just do your best at all times.
Sounds good to me. Now, once you were kind of getting towards the end of high school, Justin, what were your thoughts about in terms of college, in terms of what you wanted to be, quote unquote, when you grew up? I know it sounds like, when you were kind of in high school, the strength training really became a big part of your life, but did you have some plans in terms of, what you wanted to be when you grew up? And then once you graduate high school, what did those post-high school immediate years kind of look like for you?
Yeah. So I did my first bodybuilding show actually my junior year in high school. It was one in Allentown. It was run by Bill Grant, actually. I'm sure you know that name. Old school bodybuilder Bill Grant ran it, and it was just like an outdoor show. So that was like when I first got my feet wet with bodybuilding. Realistically, like back then there were magazines, there's bodybuilders, like, but there's no social media, and there's no like, oh, you can make a living off this. Like I just kind of saw it as a hobby. So I never like inspired to be like a bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder. At the end of the day, I knew I needed to like actually get a job and to like pay my bills and like be a normal person at the end of the day too. So when I got through college, through high school, my goal was to be a health and PE teacher. I think that was like one thing that I really loved in school and just growing up is like PE class, like most of us did that were involved with sports. So something I took a passion in, and physical therapy, that was another thing that kind of interests me. Again, health and fitness, always something that's been a part of my life. I had a long stint of physical therapy when I was in 8th grade. I blew out my knee playing football. The one year I played football, I played running back and I played cornerback. I ran both ways. I was a pretty good football player. Blew out my knee, of course. The first year I played, broke tibia plateau fracture, torn ACL. So I was in rehab for a year. And that kind of opened my eyes to the health and physical therapy aspect of it too. So I was kind of torn between the two. Took the easy route, and I was like, you know what, the sciences scare me with physical therapy and the amount of time I'm gonna be in school. I said, I'm gonna be a gym teacher, have the summers off, have fun with the kids. Cool. So I went to Westchester University for schooling. And it's funny, I almost went to East Stroudsburg. It's another local school here in PA because of the gym. The gym was like state of the art, nicer gym. And my parents were like, don't make a decision based on the gym. Like, you're going to be in there every day. We know you will, but like base it on like the location. I'm glad they did though, because I had a great time at Westchester, met a lot of good people, graduated with the health and PE degree, did nothing with it. So fresh out of college, new gym teacher, I did some subbing and stuff. But at the time I graduated 2012, I think like the teaching market just crashed at that point for teachers in general, and health and PE was kind of looked at as like, hey, we might trim the budget and get rid of that. So when I was coming to places to interview, like, yeah, health and PE, I don't even know if we're going to have that in the curriculum next year. I was like, oh, great. Good thing I went to school for 4 years, spent all my money to be a gym teacher. So I was subbing for a while. I worked at GNC, believe it or not, go figure. Worked at GNC as a store manager. So I subbed, worked at GNC for the first year out of college. And that was just really my way of paying student loans. I had no other choice. I had no other income. So it was GNC and student teaching. One of my buddies got talking to me. He's like, hey, like, if you don't want to be a teacher, I was like, yeah, I just want to make money at this point. He's like, come into sales. Like, you're good at sales. Talk to people. We'll get you into ADP. So I went into ADP my second year out of college, selling payroll. It was a great job for me being a bodybuilder at the time, because I could heat up my meals, sat at a desk, drank as much water as I wanted to, and wasn't bothered too much. So 7 years later, here I am. I'm still in the payroll industry, actually. Been in sales, and it's been awesome for me, making a lot more than a teacher, and has definitely put me in a good position financially. And I think that's like one of the biggest problems like social media has done to like the sport and young athletes coming up is like, hey, I'm going to be a professional bodybuilder. I'm going to make all this money from sponsorships and from like my following. Like, no, like figure out your life, like get your things in order, like get a job, like be able to support a family, support yourself. And then if you want to do bodybuilding, you become successful, like great, but definitely have like a foundation before you jump into bodybuilding. That was like my goal growing up. I was like, love bodybuilding, love the sport. I want to make sure I can support my family and support myself and be successful at the end of the day, with or without bodybuilding.
Great words of wisdom. Now, I want to ask you, before we kind of transition to all things bodybuilding, being in sales, that is, I mean, from my perspective, life is all about sales, right? I mean, you're always selling. We don't always look at life as all about sales, but it truly is. Now, in terms of just some of the life lessons and things that you've learned being in your profession, being in sales, what are a few of those things off the top of your head, Justin, that you could kind of share with myself and the listeners that you've learned through sales, through this professional career that you've had over the 6-7 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. I think it's a roller coaster. You have your ups when everything's going well, you're selling everything, and you have your downs where you get rejected, first phone call, getting yelled at. So, I mean, like anything in life, you have your peaks, you have your valleys. And at the end of the day, like you just make the best of it and don't give up. I think that's the biggest thing I like taught my daughter too, is like, just keep grinding. Good things will happen. Don't get frustrated in the valleys and like just focus on getting back to the top. And there's always going to be struggles. Like no matter what profession you're in, you're not going to love your job every day, I don't think. And if you do, good for you. I mean, you've done it better than me at this point. But what I found, at least in my profession, is like, especially sales, like you're not going to love your job every day. And you're going to have more better days than bad days, hopefully, but you're still going to have bad days. And it's what you make of your bad days that really impacts like your long-term and your longevity of like anything, I think.
Perfect. So let's take a step back. You said you competed in your first bodybuilding competition your junior year in high school, which that's really young. Why don't you talk about that first competition? Did you prep yourself? Did you have somebody kind of helping you? And then from there, why don't you just unpack your entire competition history? If you've competed in a lot of shows, you don't have to name every single one, but maybe just some of those highlights up to the point when you earned your IFBB Pro card, and then we'll continue from there, Justin.
Definitely. Yeah. So I did my first prep myself. There were no prep coaches back then that I was aware of. It was like, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder. I read the Arnold Encyclopedia. I was like, I'm pretty well versed now. Checked out bodybuilding.com. I think that was the only like platform for stuff back then, is like bodybuilding.com, search out different workouts, search out diets. And for me, like just naive, young, and not knowing anything, my diet was salad, chicken, and fat-free Italian dressing. I think I ate that for like 4 meals throughout the day, and egg whites. Like I rarely ate carbs. It's like, yeah, I can't eat carbs. I can't, as long as it's fat-free, I'm good. I could eat it. So I did that. I probably did for like 8 weeks. I had no clue. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get lean. High school, I mean, it was weird because I kept all my food in like the cooking class and made good friends with the cooking teacher. She let me just store my food in there. So I was a weird kid at school, like not only Asian now I was eating like chicken and salad every meal and every couple of hours. So the teachers loved that. I was always pulling out food. And then I got to the show, again, naive, young, not knowing the sport, and just kind of jumping in feet first. And I think a lot of people are scared to do that anymore. But got to the show, I was like, no clue what to do. I need an NPC car. I was like, oh, great. I'm broke as it is. I need $125 or whatever it was to pay for that. And they're like, you didn't tan? I was like, no, I've been tanning outside. Like, I tanned. Like, all right. Like, so I was like, oh man, I guess I should have tanned. I had like the short marks, I think, from my bathing suit, because I was like literally just tanning outside. Got my posing trunks from bodybuilding.com. They were bright lime green. So they were god awful at the time. And oil was another thing I like learned about. I was like, no, I'm just ready to go on stage. They're like, well, you don't have oil or anything? I was like, no. Luckily, there was an older gentleman, Charlie Wilson is his name. I still remember his name, still talk to him, run into him now and then. He gave me some posing oil, and he's like, did you eat carbs or anything? I was like, no, I just eat fat-free stuff, like no carbs. He's like, have some rice cakes or something before you go on stage. I was like, all right. So I had a couple rice cakes. I was like, oh, all right, I'm a bodybuilder now. We'll step on stage. Did the teen division. I think there was 3 people in my class maybe, so it wasn't too competitive. I ended up winning the teen class, and in the open, I was a lightweight, took second place. There was like a 40-year-old guy who was pretty big in my opinion at the time. Looking back, I was like, man, he wasn't that big looking back, but he beat me. And at the end of the day, like, it was just a fun experience. My dad went with me. Again, he knew nothing about bodybuilding. He grew up on baseball and football, so he was there more for support. But it was just a great bonding experience, I think, for me and my dad, and just like going through the process, having my family come out in the stands. They had no clue what I was doing up there on stage in a little thong for everyone to see. But I think that just kind of like, it was one of those things I got to display my hard work, felt good about myself, and just felt like it was what I was meant to do at the end of the day. Got a lot of great feedback from people. They're like, you have awesome potential. You have great genetics. Like, your bicep peaks are crazy. Like, you stick with this, like you could do something with this. And I really took that to heart, I think, because I don't think I ever hit anything off that well. Like sports, I always had to work my butt off and just grind it out day in and day out to get better. And this, I like came out, didn't really know what I was doing. And people were telling me like, you have a ton of potential. You could do this like long-term and be a professional. So that's all I needed to hear. I was like, cool, like I'm going to do this. From there, of course, went to college. I did one more show before that. It was a small show. Kind of knew what I was doing. I at least got a tan that time. So I was kind of making progress. Went to college and I was like, I can't support the bodybuilding lifestyle. I understand that. So just was a college kid for 4 years. Still ate like a bodybuilder. Cafeteria people got to know me pretty well. I was taking bagels home, egg whites. So I kind of got familiar with the bodybuilding diet, kind of ate it throughout college, plus some additional alcohol and stuff on the weekends that upped the calories. But it was fun and got to lift with my roommates. And that was like one thing that stuck with me is just training and just being somewhat consistent with diet. Didn't compete throughout college. Again, just focused on getting through school. Paying for like food and stuff was enough for me. I couldn't figure out how to compete or do anything else. Barely afford protein powder. When I bounced and stuff, that's how I paid for all my supplements. I bounced on the weekends, get my supplement order from bodybuilding.com, protein, creatine, and a pre-workout is pretty much all I could afford, and ramen noodles. So that was the bodybuilder diet in college. And then once I got out of college, I did the Lehigh Valley show. So pretty big NPC show here in my backyard. And that was the first time I truly like went all in with a prep. I had a buddy help me. His name was Justin too. He was a older bodybuilder who I kind of like just had him help me with the diet part because I really didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up winning the overall show. And that's when I was like, yeah, I could definitely do something with bodybuilding at this point. And I was like, still need a job, still need to pay my bills, like still need some foundation, but like, I definitely want to continue bodybuilding. Fast forward, like took 2 years off because I was like, I got smoked at Bev Francis. I went to a Bev Francis Atlantic States after the overall title. I was like, yeah, I just want an overall. I'm going to smoke everyone out here in New York, whole different lineup, whole different show. I was like, man, I think I took like 10th in the light heavyweight class. I was like, yeah, I need to go back to the drawing board. I'm not ready to compete with these guys. So I took 2 years off, stepped back on stage 2015. And I competed at the New Jersey State Championships, Diamond Gym. He ran that, Dwayne, awesome show, won the overall there as a middleweight. And I was always a middleweight. So that was like the one cool thing. I grew up kind of smaller, and in bodybuilding, I was always kind of a smaller class. Middleweight, I was still beating like light heavyweight guys, super heavies. So that was fun. And then right before my daughter was born, she was born September 14th. I was like, got my wife's approval. I was like, I want to do one show before my daughter comes to try and get my pro card. I really think I could do this. So went out to North Americans. I was coached by John Regan at the time. He was my first real prep coach who I was working with. He was an awesome guy, very like old school approach, and went out to North Americans. She was about to have our daughter, so she didn't come out actually. And I ended up taking second in the middleweight class in the open, just missed it. Again, they didn't give pro cards to all the classes. So I was like, man, I could have got my pro card. And then the middleweight guy, Chris Jones, he actually didn't even get his pro card at that show. So I was like, all right, didn't lose anything, forget it. Daughter was born, and just kind of focused on being a dad for a little while and just enjoyed that whole process of life. I feel like I'm rambling now. So any questions so far, Quentin?
No, you're good. Just keep rolling with it. It's awesome, Justin.
And then again, like was a dad for, I'd say up until December. Then I got the itch again. I was like, all right, like she's crawling, she's drinking her bottles, like, babes, I'm going to get back into bodybuilding. So my wife was always very supportive in it. She appreciated my balance as far as like being a dad, being a husband, and just making time for the gym and making it work at the end of the day. So I got switch coaches. I actually stayed with John Regan that year. So I did North Americans again. I felt comfortable, loved Pittsburgh. lots of good places to eat after the show, and really great show run by Gary Udit and team out there. So did North Americans again, middleweight, took second last year. So I was like, all right, I'm going to win this thing this year. Ended up taking fifth. So to me, that was like a slap in the face. I was like, man, I just went backwards. What happened? And it was just tough for me to make weight, I think, after my first year doing the North Americans. And it was a struggle for me to make middleweight, because off season, I typically like get up to like 210, 215, try to strip down to 176. And it just wasn't pretty to try and make weight. So after that year, I switched coaches. I worked with Matt Porter, one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And I'm very appreciative to have the time I had with him when he was alive. He was just a great person in general to work with, and overall great human being that knew so much information. I wish he was still around to educate the sport and educate some of the younger coming up bodybuilders. But worked with him. We did North Americans the next year again. And we had the idea where we're like, all right, we're going to be a light heavy this year, not watch the scale. Like, let's come in a little bigger and see what we can do. So again, came in as a light heavy, didn't work out too well, got smoked at North America as a light heavy. It's just a big gap between middleweight and light heavy. So got smoked there. I was like, God, I'm not going to be a light heavy, Matt. Like, these guys are huge. I feel tiny still on stage. So went back to the drawing board. I was like, I want to do another show that I'm not happy with, like my placing. Like, I'm used to top fives. So we shrunk back down to a middleweight. I did nationals then that year. Torturous show trying to make weight for that. I was just in the sauna. At one point I gave up. I was like, I'm done, Matt. 4 pounds off. We got weigh-ins in 2 hours. My wife was like trying to push me back in, and I was like, I'm done. Eventually got back in the sauna with some cucumbers, ran around naked like a maniac, dropped the 4 pounds, made it to scale. I was like, all right, I'm getting my pro card at nationals now. I just made weight as a middle. I was not supposed to be a middleweight. Stepped on stage there. Again, competition. I was like, God, these guys are shredded. AJ Sims had some like just freaks in the show. Ron Gallup. Who else was in that show? Miguel. There were so many, like, they're all IFBB Pro bodybuilders now, the whole top five. And took fifth out there. And that was just a slap in the face. I thought that was the best look I ever brought. And again, like, never blamed on judging, never blamed it on like, oh, I was off. Like, no, I was bringing my best every show. And at the end of the day, it wasn't good enough. So to me, it was like, get back to the gym, get back to the drawing board, work harder. Don't point the finger. It's me at the end of the day that's losing these shows. So worked with Matt Porter again that year. We did North Americans again. I got the stomach bug that year, and it was 2 days before North Americans. So literally the drive to Pittsburgh from my house is like 5 hours. And I tried to take something for like diarrhea, because it was just coming out both ends the day before the show. So it was the worst case scenario. My wife was driving on the turnpike up there, and there's a rest stop like every 20 miles. Pretty sure we stopped at every rest stop. I blew up every rest stop both ways because I couldn't keep anything in me. So Matt was trying to just feed me as much as possible. The scale kept dropping. It just wasn't the right show. I knew it wasn't going to be pretty, but at that point I was like, I'm not giving up. Like, I did the prep. I did everything. Like, if I shit my pants on stage, I shit my pants on stage, man. Like, I want to get up on the stage. So I think that's probably the driest I was, not on purpose, but just from being dehydrated. Probably not the smartest thing I did looking back on it now, but that was the hardest prep, probably like the last couple hours, and just trying to mentally get through that. And no, I wasn't bringing my best, but just completion to me was like key, like not giving up and like just seeing it through, because my daughter was with me at every show. And to me, that like was the most important thing, is her seeing me go through the process and seeing me compete. And whether I won or lost, like at the end of the day, she looked at me as a winner, no matter what place I got. She never knew what place I got. She just saw daddy on stage, saw all the hard work daddy did. And like, to her, that was like, just, I was her superhero no matter what I did. So I was getting up on stage. Didn't even place that year, I don't think. So it wasn't the right show. I knew it wasn't the right time. Decided to switch things up, and went back to John O'Regan. We went out to USA's. got smoked at USA's. I was a light heavy again. I was like, all right, I'm bigger now. I'm going to be a light heavy. Got smoked out at USA's. Didn't even place, I don't think. If I place the top 5, to me, that's like I didn't place. So didn't place well. We had a great time in Vegas and just fun time after. And that's always important to me, is just having fun with the family, whether I place first, second, or I don't place at all. Like, it's one of those things, as soon as I take my 30 minutes after I get off stage, decompress, reflect, like, it's past me and I have fun with my family, and it doesn't affect my family life or like what goes on after. And then from there, teamed up with Johnny Castellina, worked with him then for North Americans again. We had the goal, we were like, you're bigger, light heavy. Got smoked again at North Americans. And finally at that point, I was like, geez, I don't know. I was like, I got one more show in me. Told my wife, I was like, if I don't get my pro card this year, like, I don't want to keep chasing at this point. Like, it's either going to happen or it's not. So I reached out to AJ Sims. He was like a coach I always looked up to. Don't even know why I didn't reach out to him earlier. I wish I would have. His guys were always beating me. So I was like, you know what? If his guys are beating me, I feel like my genetics are better than some of these guys. I feel like I could beat them if I have the right coach. So reached out to him early in the year. We worked together in the off season, and we did a warm-up show. We did the New Jersey State Championships again, won another overall there, and felt the best I ever looked. Really confident in my look. Weight was dropping down. I was going to be a middleweight for North Americans. Again, it doesn't go without some sauna for me. That's kind of regardless with trying to make weight. So we saunaed some off. But his game plan was just to the point and just perfect. Everything. I was dialed in. I had a week, which was key at North Americans that year, 2019. So I flew in on Monday, made weight, and made it by the dot, 176 probably. And then I had up until Friday to just refeed and fill out. So that was like huge for me, because I think by the time I stepped on stage at North Americans as a middle, I think I was like 188. So to put 12 pounds on, 5 days, dry out, it was just an amazing experience and just perfect timing for me. And just everything lined up. Like, I knew before I stepped on stage, like, I was getting my pro card that year. I had family, friends come out. My sister-in-law made the trip out. My family was there. My mom, dad, daughter, as always. It was just an amazing experience, like, to have them all there, witnessed it as they went through like all the ups and downs through my bodybuilding career, saw me fail, saw me not place, and to see me get the pro card after, I think it was 7 tries on the national stage, not to mention all the like local shows to qualify. So it was just an amazing experience, something I'll never forget. My wife still says, she's like, that was probably the like best, the highlight of like my life versus our wedding. She's like, our wedding's number 1, but like, that's probably number 2 versus our daughter being born. She's like, that's definitely up there. I was like, yeah, that was, all the ups and downs, like, it was worth every minute of it. And like, I'm glad I almost didn't get my pro card right away, because I don't think I would have been as appreciative to like all the sacrifice, all the hard work that went in, and just like, it built more character in me, like taking those losses. Like, I learned to lose very early in life, and it just helped me like not take the loss, but just learn from it and just kind of continue to build, regrow as a person, not only physique wise, but just also mentally, like to be kind of pushed down, like not get your pro card, have people tell you like, it's not meant to do this, like, and just keep coming back year after year, a little better, whether I placed and it showed or not. I knew I was getting better, and I knew I was going to get my pro card that year.
I love that. Now, I want to ask you, before we talk about, you know, the IFBB. So, and this is something out of all of these conversations that I've had up to this point, Justin, we haven't talked about this specifically. So I'm really, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be good. So you had several different coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
From what I hear you saying, when you kind of connect with AJ Sims, he was that difference for you in getting that IFBB Pro card. Is that fair to say?
Definitely.
So what I kind of want to know, and more importantly, what I want you to share with myself and the listeners is that, from your perspective, can a coach make that difference for an athlete in terms of them getting their IFBB Pro card and not getting it?
It's a good question. I'd say to a degree. Let's say at the end of the day, though, if you're like, it's funny because we all hire, like in this sport, we all have a coach, but do you actually follow everything the coach is putting on your meal plan? Are you going off course? Are you actually putting the cardio hours in and like grinding it out in the gym without them there pushing you? I think that is like a huge kind of deciding factor that not every bodybuilder athlete in this sport has, whether they want to admit it or not, whether they're cheating on meals or not doing every minute of cardio. That's up to them to kind of be upfront or not. But to a coach's discretion, like they're putting the plan together, they're hoping that their athlete is doing that. But if they execute it, it's on the athlete. A lot of times I feel like these athletes are putting it back on the coach, saying like, oh, like I was off, like you were off maybe because you skipped some cardio, you had a couple cheat meals that you shouldn't have had. Like, so to me, like I knew I followed all my coach's plans to a T. So I always felt confident in the coach I was working with for a reason. And I knew like AJ just had the master plan. He had so many pro cards under him. He had so many guys beat me. I was like, you know, I have the work ethic. I have the genetics. Like I'm going to just follow his plan and trust his process, and it's going to work. So I think coach can make the difference. It starts with what you're putting into it though, and really just following your coach's plans and seeing it through. And it might take more than one show to see if like it lines up, make sure you can peak right, make sure like everything aligns, and making sure you give your coach feedback. Like their plan doesn't work for everyone. So giving corrective feedback and like being real with the coach, that's key too. Not taking anything away from AJ, but like we just worked well together, and like he understood my body so well. And the check-ins is crucial. Like he stayed in touch with me. I think like, I don't think that man slept the week at North Americans. He was with me every waking minute via WhatsApp app, letting me know like, when did you pee? When did you poop? Like, how much did you pee? So he was just on it. So I think that was the difference maker at the end of the prep, is like his detail and just the amount of time he invested in me.
So, go ahead if you want to.
No, you want to say hi? Here, so this is part of my why right here. She wanted to say hi.
How are you, young lady? What's your first name?
Elena Rose.
Elena Rose. Very beautiful.
Yep, Elena Rose.
That's
She's
a beautiful
6 years
name.
old, and it's funny to look back on it. Like the first time I stepped on the North American stage, she wasn't even born yet. I was warming up backstage. I had a picture of like I don't even know what it's called. The picture of her and my wife's belly yet. So I had that next to me. Like that was my motivation at that show. Ever since there, she's never missed one of my bodybuilding shows, and like been through every prep with me along with my wife. And like, that was like just one of the best experiences, and like one of the best things of being a bodybuilder, but a family man as well. I think it's a lonely sport if you do it by yourself. So to like have their support day in and day out, have them at my shows, like I always knew I had support. And I think that helped me kind of like just always be positive and just like always just enjoy the sport for what it was. And especially to have them a part of it was like huge for me. And even as I go into my pro years, like it's just a crucial part for me and like enjoying the process.
I want you to talk about that a little bit more, Justin, because, you know, earlier you talked about kind of like the importance of, you know, having that foundation of like a career or a job, and then, you know, maybe pursuing the bodybuilding stuff. So talk about the balance of, you know, bodybuilding, family, and then having that career, because I think that's something that a lot of, especially the younger listeners within fitness and bodybuilding need to hear, is somebody with your platform as an IFBB Pro, a dad, you know, a career man. I think some of the younger listeners need to hear like, hey, you can do all these things, but you need to make sure that you have your priorities set. So would you kind of talk about that a little bit, please, Justin?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like, I'll be honest, like I think social media has like this whole like perspective on things and just kind of blows things out of proportion. Like we see everyone on IG, like just living this perfect life from a bodybuilder view, and like they never put like their job on their like page, or like you never see me post about my job. Like it's not something people want to see. Like they don't want to see me sitting at my desk selling payroll to HR professionals. Like no, nobody cares about that shit. Like they don't want to see that. Oh. And then as far as like just I'd say being realistic, I think that's like the huge thing. Like don't get caught up in social media, don't get caught up in like the YouTubers. Like know that you have to work. Like at the end of the day, if you become successful in something and it is a niche and it works out, like great, but have something that sets the foundation for you that you could fall back on, because you're one injury away. Like you're not Superman at the end of the day, whether we feel like it or not. Like it takes one injury for us to never be able to compete again. I think that's the one key thing to remember. For me, that was like always key to me, is like, how can I support myself, but support my hobby at this time? Because I didn't want to just work to support a hobby. Like I wanted to be able to support my life, be successful, and be able to provide for a family at the end of the day. And to me, it can be done. Like whether we want to make an excuse or say it can't be done, like it can. Like there's so many other bodybuilders, great bodybuilders, who are being a dad, being a bodybuilder, running businesses even. Like, so it's not uncommon, I'd say, but it's something I think the youth is like seeing as blown out of proportion, like not understanding the grind and the work behind the scenes, and just seeing like the work in the gym or the work in the kitchen. Like now there's so much more to life. There's so much more to enjoy. Like, do I love the gym? Yes, I love the gym, but do I love like being home with my daughter and my wife, going on vacation? Like 100%. I love that as much as being on the stage. And I think that's important, especially in the sport, like not to get caught up in like trying to be famous or being a pro. Like just enjoy the process, enjoy your life though, and don't make like bodybuilding your life, because at the end of the day, we see people passing in the sport, like, and it's unfortunate, but like it's part of the risk at the end of the day, like being on such a high level in the sport, like you're going to risk some things. So you have to be smart with like the health approach. I'd say like that's huge for me as far as like my health, like, and being around when this one's hopefully not getting married for a while, but her wedding day, like being able to dance with her and bring her down the aisle, like things like that. Like those are the things I'm thinking about, not like being number one on the stage. Like I'm going to bring my best, but my health is number one to me. Like whether I make it to the Olympia stage one day or I don't, I know I made it to the stage at my best, but at my best health at the same time too. So I think like setting that foundation, really just having a secure job that you could live on, not relying on bodybuilding, start a family, whether you want to or not, like that's totally up to you. But like, to me, this is like the greatest gift on this earth, like is having a daughter see me kind of go through the bodybuilding. It just enhanced everything for me and gave me more of a reason to work harder. And I think like, if you have someone in your life, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife, like to be upfront, let them know like, hey, I'm a bodybuilder, but like, I'm going to make time for you and like make it work. Like my wife, I tell her every prep, like, I know this is going to suck. Like there's no getting around it. I'm going to be cranky. I'm going to be hungry, like cardio hours, like nobody loves it. But at the end of the day, if I take it out on you, it's not on purpose. Like talk to me, tell me I'm being an asshole, and like, let's talk through it. Like, I never want this to get like, I think that's key, is like being upfront, communicating with the people in your life. So it's not pushing them away, because this is definitely a sport that can be lonely, that can push people away. So for me, like it's a team approach. Like my whole family is my team. And at the end of the day, like I'm going to work with them. And I hope like they've always worked with me at the back end.
Love that, Justin. So let's step back into competing. So from my understanding, your pro debut was earlier this year at the Tampa Pro. Is that correct?
Yes.
So talk about when you stepped off stage at the 2019 North Americans with your IFBB Pro card. Obviously, we know what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, but what was your mindset going into 2020? Were you planning on making your pro debut, or were you planning on taking the year off? And then just talk about the metamorphosis in terms of you stepping on stage to make your pro debut earlier this year at the Tampa Pro.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the whole gym shutdown and everything sent everyone for a loop. Again, me, like, it's just part of who I am. I'm not one to like complain, point the finger. Like, I actually created my own gym in my garage. So like as soon as the gym shut down, I started like buying small pieces of equipment. It was supposed to be in my office here. I was like, all right, babes, I just need like sissy squat and some dumbbells. Eventually that transformed to half of our garage, which took over the whole garage. So like I still was able to work out, I was still able to train effectively. No, it wasn't like going to the gym, but like it was my own gym and still got the work done, still was able to make some progress. While I feel like a lot of people were just like, oh my God, the government shutting down the gyms. Like it's another excuse. Like, no, just make it work. Um, and I mean, it was still like tough because all the shows were being canceled. Like I was originally going to compete at the New York Pro 2020. And then I just didn't like the fact that a lot of the shows were being canceled. And for me, I need like an end game. So if that show would have got canceled, like just me and the way I am, I would have picked out another show. That show would have got canceled. I would pick that. And I didn't want to do that or put my family through that. I was like, God, I'll be in prep for 30 weeks and I'm going to go crazy in a pandemic where I was already going crazy. So I was like, you know what? Let's just take this year off. So my wife and I, we were trying for another child actually. Good time to get healthy. And we had a miscarriage actually. So pregnant for a while, didn't work out. And then 2021 hit. Again, just still working with AJ. We were so in between 212 and classic. And that was like the funny thing leading up to the show is like, is Justin here? He's going to be classic or is he going to be bodybuilding? Where's he going to fall? In my head, like I've always been a bodybuilder. So I wanted to be a 212 guy. In my head, being competitive as I am, I just didn't feel like I was big enough to compete at the level I wanted to in the 212 class. And for me, like I always said, like health is important to me. So I didn't feel like I had enough time to grow or just like be big enough to compete with those guys. So me and AJ decided together, we said, hey, like still kind of have a classic look. Let's go with that. So the cutoff is either going to be 175 or 180 or 185 was the cutoff point. So I was like, all right, we made the cut to middle at 176. I could do it. So like 6 weeks into prep yet, we said, all right, we're going to go classic. Didn't tell anyone. So just kind of ran the randomness of where is he going to fall. But in our game plan, it was classic. So he had to shrink me down. I was like 205, 195, pretty lean, pretty ready. And we still had another like 10, 15 pounds to drop. So I flew out we decided we were going to do the Tampa Pro. That was the show I wanted to do because the New York Pro happened earlier. I was like, you know what, let's give us more time. Let's do Tampa Pro. Want to go down to Florida anyway with the family, get my daughter to Disney. So it'll work out perfect. And we went down there. Of course, I picked the biggest show of the whole year on the IFBB Pro stage. Didn't know that was going to happen until I got down there. I was like, wait, how many competitors are doing this? They're like, oh, like over 40 in the class. I was like, geez. Okay. So, I mean, it was a great testament, like see where you really fall. So I wasn't mad or upset about the showing. I was excited almost and got down there a week early, like I did for North Americans. When I did that, when I qualified for my pro card, and we had the same approach as far as like making weight was the number one goal. I think I flew into Tampa at like 194 with a week out. So I had my work cut out for me. We didn't know if I was going to be 180 or 185. So we were planning on 180 and that was a goal. So I was able to make weight. They were nice to me. They let the hair kind of help me out a little bit. So I actually had the weight cut off at 185. And I think I was 184.8 or something. So there's no way I was making 180. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Like the classic class, like after I was standing next to the classic guys, I was like, I do not have a classic build. Like these guys are freaks. Their shoulders are as wide as doorways and their waists are as tiny as like a hose. Like this isn't going to work. So like I had fun. It was a great experience, great show run by Tim Gardner out there and crew, like amazing experience. AJ actually came out to the show. So that was awesome to like meet him in person for the first time. and just have his hands-on approach. It was just awesome experience. I had family, friends fly down from Pennsylvania. So like I rented a house for all of them. We had an Airbnb. So like the support for my first pro show, I couldn't ask for like better support from friends local, from friends from all over that flew there. I just didn't have it at the end of the day. Like prep went well. Like we thought we were bringing our best, but like at the end of the day, I knew I did not look good on stage. Just for the fact, like I didn't have enough time to put my fullness back in my muscle, because like how much weight I had to drop. We had 8 hours, I think, between like weigh-ins and like stepping, or 12 hours between weigh-ins and stepping on stage. And for me, that just wasn't enough time for my body to kind of bounce back. So from there, I said, like, it was an experience. It was a fun experience, especially like my dream came true, stepping on a pro stage, dreams to reality. Like it happened. Family was there. At the end of the day, everything worked out, just placing. And I knew from that point on, I was like, I'm meant for 212. So that's the game plan this year. 212 will be where I fall on the shows moving forward here.
Very cool. Do you have any plans of what show you're going to do in the future? Or is that still kind of up in the air?
Still kind of up in the air right now. I'm waiting for the schedule to come out. It's funny because I always like ask my family where do they want to go? Because again, it's a family trip. So like, yeah, I want to pick a show that's right for me, but I want to pick a show that's right for my family and somewhere we could vacation, have some fun at for a little. So this plan this year, though, I did one show and it was kind of like disappointing. I wanted to do more and I should have lined a couple up. So this year I'm planning on doing like 2 or 3, possibly, and trying to make a run at just kind of making some noise in the 212 class. Again, I'm not going to be maxed out at 212. Like I know my physique, but I know I could definitely be competitive at like 195, 205 even. I'll be on the smaller side, but I feel like with my structure and just my physique, I feel like I could still compete with some of the bigger guys. I just know personally, like health wise, like I'm not meant to be like maxed out at 230, 240 in the off season. Like right now I'm like 215, probably get up to like 220, 225, but stay fairly lean. And for the first time, I won't have to worry about making weight, which will be like a beautiful thing for me, and not to worry about the scale. So I'm excited to just bring the best looking physique versus like me fitting to a scale and a number, and then trying to figure out like, how can we bring your physique back at this point? So I'm really excited for this year. That's the plan, is to compete. Again, we'll see what happens with everything going on. But my overall goal, like when I was young, it was Olympia stage. With like seeing the competition, this 212 class, they're freakier than ever. Derek Lunsford, I mean, Sean Clarita at 5 foot, maybe, if I'm being nice, but just like stacked. And like me here at 5'6", I'm like, God, these guys are monsters. So just realistically, and being realistic with myself, like my Olympia stage, honestly, is one of the shows in Korea. That's actually my goal, whether they open up or not. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with COVID and stuff, but as soon as they open the doors over there, like I'm going to be competing in Korea, back to like my homeland. I've never been able to visit since. So I'm excited to take my family there, just compete in front of fellow Korean people and just explore the whole area. So like, to me, that's my Olympia stage. That like my goal is, if I make it to the Olympia stage, awesome. But at the end of the day, like, I just don't feel like I'm in a position to put my health at risk with where I'm at in life. And like, for me personally, like, it's not that important. Like, I want to have fun competing, be competitive, but like always have my health in check. And to me, I feel like if I wanted to compete on the Olympia stage, I have to go all in and go a little crazy, just knowing my genetics and like how big I can get and how pretty my physique can look.
I love your perspective, Justin. It's definitely a breath of fresh air, and being able to go back over Korea, dude, and compete like that. That's the stuff that like a book is written about or a movie is made. That's seriously, that's really cool. And I know it's going to happen for you, because that's something that just would be just an awesome experience for you and your family, for bodybuilding fans. Now, I want to ask you, as you seem like a very reflective individual. When you look at bodybuilding as a whole, what do you feel like bodybuilding has taught you, or what do you feel like bodybuilding has given you as a human being, as an adult, as a man?
Yeah. I think it's done a number of things for me. And honestly, like, I don't think I'd be the person I am today without bodybuilding or without finding the weights. Like, I honestly don't know who I'd be today without like finding the weight room and like finding like a way to transform my body. I don't know if I'd be comfortable in my skin to this point, but like through bodybuilding, through like just exerting and putting in the work and like seeing the results, like to me, that was like life changing and something I don't think like anything could ever like overcome or like change. But that was like a key, crucial part of my life that kind of made me who I am, made me comfortable with who I am, made me confident in the man I am. And truly just kind of changed everything about me. So I don't know where I would be in life, if I'd be this successful, if I'd have a family. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think like where I would be without bodybuilding, but to give me the confidence, to give me that structure in life, I think was key at an early age, and to have a regimen and to just have that grind. I think that's something that like people miss in life, is like some people are just lazy. And like to me, like bodybuilding lit that fire and gave me that grind to just like grind in everything I to do my best, whether it's to like be competitive in a sport, to be competitive at a job in sales, to like continue my learning. Like I went to real estate school and stuff. I have a couple investment properties, like just the overall grind in life. I think bodybuilding taught me that from day one when I picked up a weight. It's like, you control your destiny in the weight room, like you control your destiny in life. And like whatever you create of it, whatever work you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And like bodybuilding, I think, is a perfect picture of like, you make what you put in. And same thing with life. Like I learned like whatever I put into life is what I get out. And I'm going to grind my ass off no matter what I'm doing.
Amen, man. Talk to me about Prodijy Apparel.
Yeah, so that's an awesome plug for me, Quinn. Appreciate it. I started Prodijy Apparel back in the pandemic, got bored, I guess, and I was like, what can I do? I'm bored. I want to start like something new. I want to figure out a way to like reach out to more people than just like seeing me on stage. So I created Prodijy Apparel based on my name. So that's where the JY is inspired, but like just being the best version of you is kind of like what the brand's behind. Dreams to reality is kind of like the meaning behind it. And I felt like there were a lot of brands out there that was sponsored by that I really didn't understand the meaning of it. And I thought it was just like a logo I was wearing and promoting. So it just didn't really make sense to me at that point. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to come out with my own clothes that fit me well, that hopefully I can help inspire and reach out to other people, and just another way to connect with people, I think. And it's been awesome. The support's been amazing from the bodybuilding community, and just like overall my following. Like, appreciate everyone that's kind of reached out and been a part of the Prodijy brand so far. But it's just a small stepping stone, I think. And it's really just the small stages, because I'll be honest, like it's tough to manage like a clothing company, my work life, my family life, real estate investment. Like there's a lot of things I've been juggling, and like the clothing part is part of it, but like it's not a driving factor, but it's something I enjoy. And I hope it helps me reach out to more people and just kind of tell my story and motivate more people along the way.
So what type of apparel do you offer? And then if somebody wants to check out more of Prodijy Apparel, where can they find it, Justin?
Definitely. So I kind of went with like, I'm not going to lie, like I based my clothing off of like what I like to wear. And I was best dressed in high school, so I feel like I have decent style. And it's funny, I always had nicknames like Threads, like one of my old friends' dads called me. So like, it was like one of those things, like I always appreciate style, I always like to look good and feel good in the gym, but also like going out to dinner and stuff, like shit just doesn't fit a bodybuilder that well. And like, if it doesn't fit you well, I'm either looking like a sumo wrestler or I'm looking like an Abercrombie model that just outgrew his clothes. So it was like a weird balance. So I feel like I have form-fitting clothes that like helps kind of bring out the structure of a bodybuilder, but isn't like screaming like I'm gonna rip it apart if I move the wrong way. So it's all along the lines of like sleek, fitted, but active, but something you could just still wear out to dinner and not be like, what the hell is that guy wearing? He's obviously a bodybuilder. It's something that like just kind of fits my lifestyle. Like I could wear it to the gym and I could go grab dinner with my family if I wanted to, and wouldn't have to really change or just pack another shirt if I wanted to. And we do have a website. So the website is www.prodijy with JY apparel.com. And there's an Instagram page as well. So that you can find on my Instagram account. It's on there.
So do you guys have shirts, obviously? Do you have shorts? What are some of the apparel pieces that you guys do offer?
Yeah, we do a little bit of everything. So I think it's based on like what I'm wearing at that time too. Like right now in the fall, it's kind of oversized stuff for me. So like oversized tees, still have tank tops, shorts, sweatsuits is big in the fall for me in winter. And then we do have women's stuff too. Even we have a women's apparel line as well. My wife helped design that piece of it, and just like crop top hoodies, things she likes to wear at the gym. So that I'm not as good at, but that stuff I put on her. I say, hey, like, what do you like to wear these days? So our thing is like matching too. So like we try to incorporate like couples if they wanted to match and like wear similar styles. So that's part of it. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun thing to kind of help grow.
Very cool. Now we're going to wrap up this conversation. I want to ask you, you brought up going to get your real estate license. I own a gym, and I'm also, I own one property right now, but definitely looking to get more into real estate because, it's a great way to have that passive income and financial security presently and in the future. So what was kind of the impetus for you, Justin, to kind of start dabbling into real estate? And is that something that you are planning on pursuing more so in the future?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, Quentin, I didn't actually get my real estate license yet. Drug my feet, went through the schooling, got my transcript, and then I never took the test. The day I was supposed to take it, my daughter sprained her ankle. It was one of those things I was just kept on putting it off. And now I'm to the point where I'm going to have to restudy everything. But I mainly got into the real estate part for investing. I've always kind of looked up to like real estate investors and like never grew up with anyone knowing about it. So it was like one of those things I had to figure out for myself. I have a local mentor, Bryce Stewart, who's been like amazing. Read his book. He has a great book that you could check out. But to me, it was like just a long-term goal for me. Because like I love the gym, love spending time with my family. I don't want to work a 9-to-5 job for the rest of my life. And again, like that was just a way out for me that I saw as that I can do and be in control of. And it's something I control. And that's huge for me. It's like real estate is something I control. If I do get my real estate license, great. Like I can work it on the side and sell houses. But for me, like the investment side is really what attracted me. I was lucky enough to buy 2 investment properties this year alone, actually, and start my investing career. It was the first house I purchased when I moved out of my parents' house. I sold it to this lady. I found out she was moving and was able to buy it back from her off market. So that was huge. It's literally on my street. It's 5 houses down, half double. So I was able to purchase that. And then I was able to buy the other side too of it. Found out they were selling it, bought it off market again, and just kind of networking, talking to people. And it was just like one of those things that worked out. And I'm hoping it's just a start for me. Like that's kind of my long-term goal is real estate investing is my goal. So I could focus more on my family, hopefully focus more on bodybuilding if it continues to work out. But for me, it's a way to set my daughter up for the future as well and just kind of help her when she's older. So she has something when I'm not here to help her.
Smart man. I love it, dude. You are definitely diversified, and it's encouraging. And I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air and encouraging to some of the listeners. So I want to ask you one last thing, and then I'm going to kind of give you the floor to kind of share any final thoughts. Okay. One of the Instagram posts I saw, you talked about daily routine. Would you talk about or expand a little bit more about daily routine and maybe some of those daily practices that you have within your daily routine, Justin, to kind of just help you focus on what you need to focus on and be the best version of yourself each day?
Definitely. I like to wake up early, at least earlier than my family. I'll say that. I'm not like a 5 a.m.er, but I'm a wake up like an hour, 30 minutes before everyone else in the household wakes up, just to kind of have time to myself and kind of prepare mentally for the day. Don't like TVs, don't like cell phones, like first thing out of bed. And it's really just time to kind of reflect on like my day and like what I'm going to do today and like my goals. And I just like silence. It's weird. Like the first couple minutes out of bed, like I'll come downstairs, get my breakfast ready and just kind of sit by myself and just kind of reflect. And it's something I've always done. I always like waking up early before everyone else, just to have my time to myself, because the rest of the day I want to be there for everyone else. And that's kind of like my goal, is like waking my daughter up then and like getting her ready for school, walking her to school, talking to her and being in the moment. And that's key for me, is like being in the moment, because I feel like as a father, I feel like before that, like Instagram, it's easy to get like distracted. And I never wanted to be that dad. And I felt like I started to become that dad. I had to like kind of just look myself in the mirror and be like, you're being that dad, like live in the moment, be there for your daughter, like put your phone down, life can wait, like be there for the people that are around you. In this digital market, it's so hard, I think, in the fast pace that we move, like it's so hard to do that sometimes. But for me, like that's like key, is like slowing down sometimes and like putting my distractions aside and just being in the moment with the people I love. And then the other piece I'd say is just like my time in the gym. Like I mean, I have people talk to me. I love when people talk to me and like interact with me, but like at the end of the day, like that's my go time and like my time to like decompress, let it all out, all the frustration. Like that's where I get it out of me. The last couple of reps are always like the frustration or like something that's bothering me. Like I'll leave it in the gym and it's there. That's like my therapy at the end of the day. And I'd say like when I go to bed, same thing, like the phone goes down like 30 minutes and read a book to my daughter and just like have a conversation with my daughter. We have a routine, like talk about the day, like life lessons, things like that. And then my wife and I like just pillow talk. Like it's like something that's kind of lost sometimes, I think, is like talking to people instead of like being involved on your phone. Like it's funny, like just simple things like that I think we forget about, that help me stay grounded and help me just kind of stay focused at all times when I'm in the moment.
Excellent, man. Justin, I want to thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, sharing your story, sharing some of your life lessons and bodybuilding experiences with myself and the Behind the Muscle podcast listeners. If you have any final thoughts or any final words that you'd like to leave myself and the listeners, I would love to have you do that. And then where can we find you? Where can we follow along? And where can we connect with you on social media?
Definitely. So Instagram, I mean, I'm out there on Instagram at Justin Yurko, YURKO .IFBB Pro. So you can find me on there. Easy way to contact me is just shoot me a message, communicate with me in a post. Happy to always communicate and network with different people. And if you have questions, email typically would be the best. JustinYurko@gmail.com is my personal email. So if there's anything I could help out with, even if you want to vent or like you ran into a similar life scenario that I've been through, love hearing people's stories. I like telling my story, but even more, I like hearing people's stories and just kind of reflecting on that and being motivation for people. So would love to reach out and connect with anyone that needs help or wants to just kind of shoot the shit or wants some advice even. But yeah, those are probably the best two ways. Facebook is another. Facebook, you find me, but again, that's more just like personal family stuff that I typically post on there. You won't see much bodybuilding stuff on there. I'm working on a YouTube channel. That's like my goal this off season, is to start putting together content. I have a ton of content. I just haven't been able to upload it. So been dragging my feet, but that's next to come, is YouTube channel, just to kind of follow more of my day in the life of, and just different things as far as training outside of the gym, things like that.
Very cool. Any final thoughts or any final words you want to leave us, Justin?
I don't think so. I really appreciate your time, Quentin. It's been awesome. Hopefully we could get a part 2 up. If people like this kind of content and don't get sick of me by the end of this video, I know it's been a while here. This is a long video. So hopefully you haven't gotten sick. You've made it through the video at this point, and would love to hit it off with you again and just kind of touch base on some different items in life. I felt like it was easy to connect, and love telling more stories and just kind of even question answer. If people had questions or anything, we could even do a question answer or a live video. Like, I'm always open to that kind of stuff and love connecting with new people. So
I'll definitely, if you're down for another episode in the future, I'll take you up on the offer. I think I'm getting into some more of the training philosophy and the mindset with training and just kind of the bodybuilding. That would be cool. I know that's something that we didn't get to today, but one of your posts you mentioned, not really recently, at least, using, a barbell. You're focused more on the mind to muscle connection and cables and things like that. So I'll definitely take you up on that offer, Justin. I appreciate you sharing your story. And I know that there's going to be some people that are going to listen to this and they'll probably be reaching out to you because your story had an impact on them. So thank you. And listeners, those of you who are tuning in through YouTube, once again, I just want to say thank you to you, because if it wasn't for you, the podcast would not exist. I continue to say this because it's the truth. The YouTube channel is growing. We just hit over 400 subscribers. I think it was yesterday. We're at 401 today, which that might not seem like a big number to you, but just a couple months ago, I think it was under 100. So the YouTube's growing, the Instagram is growing. It's not because of me, it's because of you guys, and it's because of the awesome guests that are willing to come on and share their stories. So I appreciate you guys. Continue to do these 3 things for me, please. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's really important because I release all of these episodes on YouTube first, and then I shoot them out to all my other podcast platforms. Sometimes I release episodes the night before that I actually make the post on social media. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Also, take whatever valuable advice you gleaned or gained from Justin today, or whatever your favorite part of Justin's story was. Put that in the comment section below on YouTube so that we can read those, we can see those, and we can kind of just get some of that feedback from you guys. That's always appreciated and cool to see your guys' feedback through those YouTube comments. And then finally, please take this episode, share it on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you tag Justin, make sure you tag Behind the Muscle so that, again, we know that you listen and you found great value specifically in Justin's episode. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.